much for joining us tonight for what I believe is going to be a very enlightening and interesting program. Because tonight we're going to be talking to some of the outstanding and progressive attorneys general in the United States of America. We have 4 attorneys general on. They're doing a great job in their respective states. And in a moment, we're going to hear from the Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison. We're going to hear from the Attorney General of New York State, Tish James. We're going to hear from the Attorney General of Michigan, Dana Nessel. And we're going to hear from the Attorney General of my own state of Vermont, TJ Donovan. But before we get to our Attorneys General and the questions that you have for them, so please send us your questions and we'll do our best to get them to the Attorneys General. But before we get there, let me just do as I often do, take this moment to thank all of those incredible people in every state in our country who are putting their lives on the line as we speak to protect us, to keep us healthy, and to keep our economy going. And I'm talking about our doctors and our nurses and the EMT staff and the ambulance drivers and the grocery store clerks and the pharmacy store clerks and our truck drivers and everybody else who's out there today. A couple of nights ago, some of you may have watched the program where we talked to union leaders from the United States Postal Service. And we have seen many postal workers lose their lives during this pandemic. So thank you to everybody out there who are protecting the American people. And as a United States Senator, let me also say that at least some of us, I cannot speak for the whole Senate, are more than aware, not only of the pandemic, but of the economic meltdown which is now taking place. We know and are aware that in my own state of Vermont, throughout this country, there are families that literally do not have food in the cupboards. They're wondering how they're going to feed their kids tomorrow, that tens of millions of Americans have lost their jobs, and they're not quite sure how they're going to pay their rent, pay their mortgages, pay their student debt loans, pay their credit card debts. And we are now working on a new piece of legislation that I hope will address many of the issues that low-income and working families have. To my mind, that I speak now only for myself, I think we've got to emulate what many European countries have done, and that is to continue the paychecks coming into workers all over this country who have lost their jobs. And I think also in this horrific moment in American history, we have got to make sure that all of our people, those who are uninsured, underinsured, those who have private insurance, that all of our people during this pandemic know that they will have all of the health care that they need and not worry about how they have to pay for that. And we can do that by expanding Medicare to cover the uninsured and the underinsured. And the other thing that we're working hard is our full understanding that the Trump administration has been less than effective in terms of implementation, in terms of getting the money out to communities around the country. And we want to make sure that there is transparency and that we get the money out. So bottom line is, as I think everybody knows, millions of people are hurting. They are scared to death. And as a government at the federal, state, and local levels, we've got to do everything we can to protect our people. With that, let me introduce the Attorney General of the great state of Minnesota, Keith Ellison. Keith was a member of the House of Representatives for many years, one of the most progressive members of the House, somebody I have worked with for a very, very long time. So let me thank Keith for being here tonight. Let me thank Keith for helping to organize this event. Keith?
Hey, thanks a lot, Bernie. It's great to see you. I just want to say thanks for having us on. I think that a lot of Americans, a lot of people would like to know, who's fighting, who's on the front line for Americans. And I want to assure them that progressive attorneys general are absolutely there. Me, my colleagues, who you're going to hear from in a moment, are on the front line of protecting people from what I describe as pandemic profiteering in the form of price gouging, in the form of illegal evictions. A lot of our states have eviction moratoriums. Some unethical folks are trying to put folks out anyway. We're fighting against that, not to mention the online scams, the stimulus check scams, and not to mention a whole range of things that are happening with Americans as they try to tread water and stay alive in this moment. So we've been busy. You're going to hear more about it. And I just want folks to know that they can call us, my particular office, and I'll invite my colleagues to share their information as well. You can reach us in Minnesota at 651-296-3353 if you've been scammed, if you've been illegally evicted, if you have been seen price gouging, and if unethical, unscrupulous behavior has been targeted at you. I also want to note that we've been spending a lot of time trying to defend people, particularly people in this moment who are of Asian background. We've seen a spike in hate crimes. A lot of people in our Hmong community have been targeted, and we are pushing back on that. We are not going to tolerate that kind of thing this time of year in this moment. And so we've been right there on the front line for human decency and human protection. But that's a little bit about what us attorney generals have been up to. And of course, all of us have been working hard, similar work, but unique to the state that we come from. So I'll turn it over to Tish at this point.
So first, let me thank you. I want to thank Senator Sanders for hosting this discussion. And of course, I want to give a shout out to my brother, Attorney General Ellison, and thank you for organizing this. Of course, to my great sister, Attorney General Nessel, and to my brother, my newfound brother, Attorney General TJ Donovan. It's my honor and distinction to represent the great state of New York, where I hail from, the Republic of Brooklyn. I'm proud New Yorker. As you know, unfortunately, New York has been the epicenter of COVID-19. And while our state has been fully mobilized to address the public health crisis, my office has been fully mobilized to protect individual rights. But unfortunately, this crisis has revealed and has turned, the covers have revealed the fault lines along race, unfortunately, and socioeconomic status. And so I'm concerned about others in a position of power who are exploiting this public health crisis as an excuse to push a regressive, a oppressive, and a suppressive political agenda. And individuals, unfortunately, that have turned the clock back on progress. I also want to stand up for women. States like Arkansas and Alabama and Tennessee and Oklahoma and others are using this pandemic as an excuse to strip away the rights of women. And I, along with all of my colleagues on this teleconference, will not stand idly by and allow individuals to trample upon our rights, because 50 years since Roe versus Wade, there is not an exception in Roe versus Wade for pandemics. This is about protecting women's bodies. We also need to protect those who unfortunately are marginalized, and those right now in congregate care, those in homeless shelters, those in prisons, those in our nursing homes, those in disabled homes, those in foster homes. We need to stand up for them because the pandemic is affecting them as well. In New York State alone, 3,500 people have died in our nursing homes. 3,500. And so it's really critically important that we ensure that we report the rate of infection and the rate of deaths in nursing homes, not just in New York, all around this nation. And I'm calling upon the federal government to do that. Listen, we've responded to over 5,700 complaints of price gouging. We've issued 1,300 cease and desist orders. We've stood up for renters. and homeowners. We've called the federal government to provide some relief to student borrowers. Healthcare, we've stood up for safety net hospitals for immigrants. We are defending the Affordable Care Act at a time when they want to chip away at it. We are defending and urging the federal government to basically halt the implementation of public charge for immigrants. And we've been fighting back against and filed a lawsuit against this administration as it relates to food stamps. Individuals at this time are going hungry, and this is not the time to cut off food stamp benefits to those who need it most. And so there are a number of issues that we've been working on, but I can say, as I conclude, that the safety net, my friends, our social compact, all that we negotiated, and the reason why we are in public service right now is in jeopardy. And it's important that we have an open and honest discussion about those who've been left behind. The fault lines have revealed themselves, and it's now time for all of us to respond and to protect those who unfortunately have been left out of the sunshine of opportunity. Thank you, Senator.
Tish, thank you very much. It sounds like you and your colleagues have an incredibly full agenda. Let me introduce now Dana Nestle, the Attorney General of the state of Michigan. Dana, thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much for